Simply Scuba presents the Deco podcast.
Hi everybody, welcome to Simply Scuba and welcome to the Deco podcast. I'm Mark, a former dive instructor, and as always I'm here to talk about scuba diving and stuff, the latest scuba diving news and things that are arriving, which leads me quite neatly into the first sort of website update, which is the big one this week, which is the Apeks Exotec BCD. So I'm going to spend a bit more time about it a little bit later because that's my product of the week, funnily enough. But that's the real sort of big one to be landing on the channel. It's a little bit different. It's kind of the successor to the Black Ice. But yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit later because that's quite interesting. Other than that, I think I mentioned the new Hollis backplates and wings last week. Otherwise, new on the website, it's mainly new rash vests for men, women, and children of all sizes and ages. So yeah, if you need a new RAS vest, we have plenty, as well as flip-flops, which I didn't know that we sold. So yeah, we sell flip-flops now, which is kind of cool. Flip-flops are always useful for scuba divers. Just make sure that you're not like my friend Dave, who went to throw them down because you're not allowed to wear shoes on boats in certain areas at least. You take them off and you stow them away nice and neatly, and then afterwards, when you sort of get back, you put them on, and he very callously threw them down on this like open slatted sort of walkway over the water. The first one landed perfectly on one of the I think they look like old railway sleepers, and it landed perfectly on that. And I warned him. So the second one, it went straight through the middle in the gap, and yeah, we ended up having to swim after that one. But yeah, flip-flops, always useful. I see a lot of divers wearing Crocs as well, which I think is probably the only socially acceptable place where you can wear Crocs. But anyway, there are some other new bits and bobs from Aqualung. They've arrived in the warehouse, but they're not on the website right now. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, just in case by the time that you're listening to this, the website hasn't updated, because there's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes, and I don't want to overpromise anything. But I'll definitely talk about them next week. Moving on to social channel updates. So for YouTube, Friday's AskMark, I was talking about attaching things onto BCDs. Someone was saying how they don't own their own BCD yet, so they end up renting whenever they go diving abroad, and they want to know the best way of attaching things onto your BCD without becoming a Christmas tree diver. And yeah, it's kind of tough. Most rental BCDs, they still tend to be jacket styles, so you do still get pockets. And even if you do have sort of bolt snaps and clip them off onto D-rings, they do dangle a little bit. So nowadays, I just tend to wear thigh pockets, because you can get like tech shorts that you just wear over your board shorts or over your wetsuit, and that just gives you some thigh pockets for some nice streamlined sort of storage options. Someone asked, why don't we get wetsuits with dry suit seals, which is effectively a neoprene dry suit but without the valves. So I explained about compression and squeeze and all that kind of stuff. Wireless air integration, is it essential? Not really. It's one of those things. It's a really nice feature to have, but it's not an essential feature. And it's a personal choice. No one can make that decision for you. Cleaning pool gear. So if you're in and out of a swimming pool, this person says they're due to do a lot of pool training coming up. They just want to know the best way to like clean their gear afterwards. So it's mainly just the usual fresh water. Give it a good flush out on the inside and the outside, and then let it drip dry. But the one thing is not to leave things hanging up in pool rooms for too long, because that really warm, humid environment just promotes mold. So even with the chlorine in the water, mold still grows. So it's quite important to drip dry and then move it to a dry environment so it's not so humid. Someone had the problem of breathing out of their nose. They found that either something going on in their like ear, nose, throat area, whenever they exhale through their mouth, but they also exhale out of their nose a little bit, which of course causes their mask to fog up, which is quite a tricky problem because it's not really something that you can sort of tell someone as, oh, well, you just close that section of your throat. It's more complicated than that. But nowadays we have quite modern dive masks, like in the I think it's mainly down to Cressy. Cressy have come leaps and bounds with this technology with their anti-fog seal on the inside of the Calibro mask, and it's also in the new Quantum mask, which has these kind of heat sinks built into the silicone skirt of the mask, so it helps to prevent defog. So even if you do exhale a little bit through your nose, it redirects it so it doesn't go over the mask lenses. So that's quite clever. And semi-dry suits. Someone just basically wanted to learn the difference between a semi-dry and a wetsuit. And yeah, semi-dries are basically just wetsuits on steroids. They're kind of like, they're a dry suit for the first about 10-20 minutes of the dive or something, and then eventually water does find its way in, but that's not a problem. It's basically a decent wetsuit that's going to keep you warm in colder waters. Saturday's Google Answered was on Regulators, or at least I started on Regulators, and yeah, God bless the internet. It took me in some weird directions. There is a vomit warning on that one. Not that I throw up or anything, but I do answer a question on throwing up through your regulators. So if you do have that. Not affliction, I can't think of the word, aversion to vomit. Don't worry, there is a vomit warning well beforehand, before I start talking about it. And on the Sunday dive brief later on today, if you're listening to this at time of release, I've got a dive brief on basic hand signals. I was just thinking on topics and just thinking, oh yeah, I think I've done hand signals a while back, but it would be nice to do a dive brief sort of series on hand signals, and I just started off with the real basics in this one, and in other dive briefs I can do some more advanced ones if you want. And this Tuesday's top tips is on shore diving. This week I did one on UK diving, and I thought, hey, shore diving as well would be useful. So I did a top 10 tip video on shore diving. Moving on to scuba news, there's a firmware update for the Aqualung i330R dive computer. So if you have got an i330, that's the sort of small-ish color screen dive computer, the sort of the successor to the i300. There's a new firmware update. All you have to do is connect it to the Diver Log Plus app on your phone, and basically just follow the guides. There's a new update to make sure that you're running on the latest firmware, as well as the Sunto core, the Eon core and the D5. That's quite a useful one as well. It increases and better increases the communication between your dive computer and your mobile phone or your smartphone, so you can just change things that much easier. Previously, you either had to do it on like a desktop or something, or on the actual dive computer itself. But now you can change a lot of the settings just through the app, and I think you get a new screen as well, a new watch screen. If you don't like the digital screen, you get an analog watch screen, and you can change the colors of the digits and things, which is kind of cool. So a couple of new updates there. In diving industry news, this is more sort of UK based. But still, if you live abroad, it might still sort of apply to you. But an Indiegogo funding page has been launched to help relaunch Diver magazine. You may know them from their digital moniker, which is divernet.com, and it's actually Britain's oldest diving magazine. Towards the end of 2021, the publishing house, Eaton Publishing, who were the owners of Diver Magazine, collapsed, and now Rourke Media has kind of taken over, and now they're looking to try and raise some funds to basically relaunch it, bring it back. It's still going to have the same original editor, Steve Wyman, to sort of be back at the helm of the magazine and get things going again, back to what it was. Diver was a free magazine that was sent out to dive centres to kind of encourage people to spend a bit more time in dive centres, and when you're there, whilst your gear's getting assembled or waiting to collect it or something, you had something to flick through, and it had information on like the latest UK diving news, sort of gossip, everything. I think they even did recipes at one point, which is quite cool, new information. But yeah, info on like charter boats and diving, sort of at home and abroad, places to go, dive equipment recommendations, all that kind of stuff. Their current goal is £15,000, and most of that, or actually all of that, is going into just rejuvenating it to bring it back. And there's a few ways that you can help. There's typical sort of like Indiegogo, Kickstarter type things. You get different rewards based on how much that you put back into it. And it ranges from, I think everyone's going to get mentioned in the sort of first new magazine publication, but you can actually become you can sponsor an editorial if you want to. But there's merchandise and things and all of that. And if you run a dive center as well, you can if you invest so much, then you'll get so many free editions of it. So yeah, it's just to sort of help bring it back and sort of get it back to its former glory. So I'll put up a link to the Indiegogo page down in the description below, so you can check it out. I'm sure if you've ever like sort of Googled things and you search for things, you'd often see a divernet.com link come up, and yeah, lots of very informative information on there. So yeah, just definitely something worth checking out. The link will be down in the description. A very big wave has been created in the competitive freediving world after world record holder Matthews Molina published a 56-page document which was titled "The Undisputed Truth" about just the competitive freediving, and there were some very strong allegations about the performances, professionalism, and the abilities of world record holder Branko Petrovic. So it breaks down and includes a lot of allegations about doping in the freediving and especially the competitive freediving world. Including using banned substances such as beta blockers, which are banned under the World Anti-Doping Agency rules for both AIDA and CMAS freediving competitions. So beta blockers basically help to reduce your heart rate, your blood pressure, and stress responses. So for freediving, where you're trying to reduce all of those and calm everything down and extend your breath holds, beta blockers sort of really do sort of aid you in doing that. And the document basically alleges that Petrovic set all of these significant records by using beta blockers, and now that basically he cannot recreate these performances in competitions with full doping controls. So very, very strong allegations. The document was first posted to the AIDA International Facebook group, and caused quite a controversy, and readers had a mixed response. Some sort of backing what Molina had put, others sort of say that it's just trying the usual kind of, oh no, don't look at what I've been doing, look at what he's been doing, and all this kind of stuff. But Petrovic himself commented and has threatened legal action because it could be slander, libel. I can never remember the two. But yeah, big waves and very large allegations about these sort of competitive freedivers. So in the next coming months are going to be very interesting. To see what happens legally. Sticking with freediving, Egyptian swimmer Omar Higazi has broken 2 Guinness World Records back in April. So Omar set a new record for the longest distance swim underwater with one breath, swimming 56.48 meters. Oh, and by the way, he only has one leg, so that's why it's so groundbreaking. But he also broke the record for the longest distance swim underwater with one breath with fins, with a distance of 76.7 meters. But this chap is incredible. I think he was a banker. And he was involved in an accident which cost him his leg, and to sort of get back into activity and whatnot, he took up swimming, and he was inspired by another amputee who broke a scuba diving record. Which kind of caused him to look for other world records for him to break himself, and yeah, he's done this all. But he's quite an accomplished mountain climber now, even with one leg. He swum from Taba on the Sinai Peninsula to the pyramids in Giza. Just incredible determination. So well done for him. And yeah, just proving that you don't need 2 legs to continue to swim and break world records. Still with freediving, with the next news story. I mean, this is less a news story and more of a Netflix documentary that I recommend everybody watch. It's on freediving. It's on the freediver Joanna Nordblad. I'm going to do my best not to spoil anything because it is quite interesting to watch it all the way through. But she's looking to break the women's world record for longest freedive swim under ice. And just watching it makes me feel cold because she does a lot of it just in a swimsuit. And it's just like, oh goodness, I can't look at that sort of ice without thinking, well, why is nobody wearing a dry suit? But oh yeah, just incredible sort of feats, and lots of twists and turns. Very interesting to sort of watch how she prepares for it and everything. And yeah, it's on Netflix, or it's definitely on Netflix UK because I watched it. I watched it yesterday. I'm going to pop a link to the trailer down below so that you can watch it, and I imagine there's a link to it on Netflix. But if not, if you search for "Hold Your Breath," the ice dive, I think that's what it's called, and that should pop it up on Netflix. But stunning visuals on this because her sister is quite a keen photographer. They're both freedivers, and the sister does a lot of just amazing sort of angles and views under the water, watching these freedivers. And in a lot of cases, you can kind of see up through the ice, so you get these very, very funky angles of the freediver sort of cruising, and you can see people walking above her. Yeah, very, very beautiful sort of camera work as well. So definitely worth checking out. But one thing that I will note, because a lot of it is subtitled, that's not an issue. I'm quite used to that. But there is a gore warning that I feel there's a very vivid depiction of an injury to her leg at about I think it's almost exactly the 5-minute mark, because you're so focused on reading those subtitles. You're watching the screen, and then she sort of talks about this injury, and then it shows the injury in all of its glory, and you're just like, oh, I wasn't prepared for that at about 2:00 in the afternoon after eating lunch. So yeah, once it gets to like 5 minutes, it's not long, and it's not awful, but if you're not a fan of sort of injury detail, yeah, as soon as she starts talking about like an injury to her leg, just be prepared to like hide behind a pillow or something, or at least look away from the screen. Okay, and moving on to my product of the week, which this week has to be the Apeks Exotec BCD. So this is a new wing style recreational BCD. It's kind of that midway stepping point between recreational BCDs and backplate and harnesses, because this does have an aluminium backplate, which is either in a quite a dark charcoal gunmetal grey color or a sort of subdued orange color, which gives it a really cool contrast between the black parts of the BCD. So it's still a recreational BCD as such, because everything is kind of stitched together. They're not individual components that you can just chop and change like a technical backplate and wing. But if you're thinking about getting into that, it will be a good recreational wing for you. But one of the best sort of parts in it is in its waistband. It has an articulated joint which they call bioreact. And if you watch my video, I do my best to sort of display how it works. But basically, the waistband is independent from the rest of the backplate. So the waistband like clips around your waist, and it kind of there's a hinge, there's a pivot just around in the small of your back, about the small of your back. So as your shoulders move, the shoulder straps, the back plate, and the bladder of the wing pivot, but the waistband sticks with your waist, and it's a really weird thing to try and explain, but it's very, very comfortable and it feels very natural, as opposed to having this just backpack thing attached onto you that every time you move, it kind of, you can tell there's something foreign on your body. When you have this bioreact sort of waistband on, it feels much more natural and fluid, so it bends and flexes with you. It's a weird sensation, but it's a pleasant weird, if that makes sense. It's weird in that it doesn't feel like most other BCDs. It has the clever Grip Tech fabric on the inside, which is like a rubbery texture to it. So especially when it's wet, it grabs hold of whatever is underneath, so your shoulders or your waist. So the BCD moves and flexes with you, and it has this wing style bladder, so keeps you in that nice horizontal position, and has plenty of lift. But it also has retractors as well, so bungee straps that help to sort of tuck the wing in, so that when it's deflated, it's not just flapping around sort of freely in the water. And the external shell of the bladder is that PVD coating. So it's PVD. No, I feel that's wrong. I want to say PSD because of public service diving. Anyway, it's not that that nylon cordura. It's that sleek sort of plasticky out coating, which is hydrophobic. So as soon as you get out, it's completely dry. So that's quite nice between dives, in that your BCD dries almost instantly, and you don't have this kind of soggy thing that you have to throw in the back of your car. All of the accent parts are anodized aluminium. So with orange, all of the D-rings and the little G clips and things, and the grab handles for the integrated weight pouches, those are anodized aluminium, so they're bright orange as well, which is quite cool. If you want more subdued with the blacky sort of charcoal grey, they're all charcoal grey, so it's not quite as flashy. But yeah, very, very nice, very sort of pristine, nice attention to details. It's got this like single tank adapter on the back, just down in the, again, the small of your back. So that I think sort of plays into Aqualung's Rapture system. So Rapture means that instead of the weight being on your shoulders when you're out of the water, it puts it down onto your hips. So the weight of the cylinder doesn't just bear down on your shoulders and your back and give you backache after a while. It sits much lower down, so it's much more comfortable. And it has their quick release. What do they call it? Kanban's buckle. Shorelock, I think they call it. Shorelock 2, I think it's the second generation. and that is, instead of the traditional cam band, that plastic cam band that you have to thread through one slot and then back on itself and then back through the third slot, it's two separate buckles, and one of them articulates, so you can quickly adjust it using Velcro to the size of your cylinder, and then you just wrap it around the back of the cylinder and attach the two buckles, clamp it down, and you're ready to go diving. It's much quicker and easier, and it has a nice finger saver function. So as you go to clamp it down, it pauses just in the last like 2 centimeters or something. And that gives you a chance to get your fingers out from underneath it. Unlike most traditional cam bands, which once it goes, it just goes. And if your fingers are underneath, they're going to get pinched. This one, it just pauses, gives you a chance to get everything out of the way, and then you just push it a bit more and it clamps down nice and secure. So they're available on the Simply Scuba website. They're very quickly selling out of stock, unfortunately. We've only got a few sizes left. But yeah, if you need a new BCD, you want something pretty tough, but not sort of outrageously heavy or overly complicated, yeah, it is definitely worth checking out Exotec. It's the new thing, and it's kind of replacing what the black ice. The place where black ice sat in the X Deep the Apeks BCD range. So it's that sort of halfway between recreational and technical wings, and yeah, it is a good stepping point to get you into sort of more advanced diving. But yeah, I'll pop a link down in the description below so you can check it out. Okay, so moving on to my question of the week, which I kind of struggled with, to be honest. I couldn't really come up with any inspiration. No questions really jumped out at me this week. I considered doing it on semi-dry wetsuits, but I spoke about wetsuits last week, so I figured you want a little bit different. And I've done most of the other sort of big hitters recently with Regulators and watches and things. So I figured I'd look at fins, and I just sort of decided, you know what, which fins are best? And I'm sure I can spend a lot of time talking about fins because I've used quite a few in my years. I think the very first type of fins I ever used were those real classic one piece of rubber fins. I think it had like a seagull on it or something. Or maybe it was the Beauchamp Marlin. I can't remember at this point. But yeah, I think my first open heel fins were split fins. I know, which is quite controversial. But I quite like them. They were efficient, and I didn't know any better at the time. But I think I still got them downstairs. They are a decent pair of fins, and they're a very unique kind of fin style. It was oceanic. They did a taster session at our dive center once, and they were trying to push I think they were the V8 or the V16 fins at the time, and to compare it, and they actually had a little gizmo which had a small propeller on one side, and it was like a like a speedo on your car. And they said, right, well, just wear your normal fins and see how fast you can go in the swimming pool, and then put these split fins on and see how fast you can go. And I was actually much faster with the split fins. I don't know whether it was that particular split fin style, or, yeah, I mean, granted, I swam like one length of a pool, so it's not really the best representative sample, but hey, in that sample, it did prove that they were more efficient. Today, I wear vented fins, Apeks RK3s, like so many other divers nowadays, because they're just short, efficient, and just bulletproof. Probably not literally. I imagine if you shot them with a gun, it would go straight through. But they're a tough pair of fins, and they're very no nonsense. They get the job done. It's that quite traditional shape and style. It's good for all sorts of different fin kick styles. So whether you're a frog kick or scissor or whatever floats your boat, they get the job done in a neat, compact little package. I mean, I can throw them in my backpack and they're not like sticking out anywhere. Whereas if I take some other pair of fins, then they're normally a little bit that much longer, so they don't quite fit into a backpack, so they stick out. Mares Avanti Quattros, the real classics, they are very, very efficient, but they're just that little bit longer. So if you do have to do some like sort of backpack stuff, then yeah, they tend to stick out the top of your bag or something. But again, channel fins like the Avanti Quattro, very, very effective for all sorts of different diving, and because they do come in a lot of different colors, I see a lot of divers, especially dive guides and dive instructors, they often buy them in pairs. So these two divers will one will get yellow, one will get green, and then they swap one so that you have one yellow, one green, and that really helps you to stand out in the water, so everybody can just kind of look around and immediately identify someone. But very, very effective and very strong. They've been going for years and years and years. I imagine they are literally going to break the mold before they discontinue that fin. I know they brought out like more advanced versions, but typical scuba divers who don't like change, we always stick with the Avanti Quattros. They definitely do the job. The traditional paddle fin, I'm not a huge fan of, but that's just a single piece of like hardened polymer, plastic or whatever, not overly efficient. So the channel design where it's got those two or three, I think there's even a four, I think Tusa brought out, did they have 3 or 4? Anyway, it had multiple different stiffness materials in each section to sort of really sort of adjust the shape of the blade and all that kind of stuff. We do get hinged fins as well. Now, hinged fins feel really floppy when you sort of get in the water and you sort of start to move your feet. It feels as if, well, how's this going to do anything and help me move through the water? But as soon as you start moving them, you suddenly realize, oh, wow, yeah, I'm actually sort of moving at a fair rate. They are very efficient. However, they do have that inherent flaw of you have that articulating, well, it's not really an articulating joint, but it's a moving joint. So if you use them too much, I mean, Scuba Pro, I think they're on like the 4th generation of hinges, because the first one just kept breaking, and then the second one, it just, yeah, it's a moving part, and it's a lot of force that runs through that little hinge. It does make them more efficient because it helps the actual angle of the blade just be at the perfect angle of attack during each portion of the fin kick. But I mean, I know a diver who actually had a pair of hinged fins, and I think they must have done it in like a pool session where they stepped over and basically stepped on top of the blade and basically cracked the that hinge section. So they're one of those. Yes, technically the design is very, very efficient and very effective at what it does. However, you do have to use them properly, and you do have to be aware of its potential sort of flaws so that you don't break them. Otherwise, you've got all of the freediving fins as well. So long apnea fins. Each of those has their own individual like speciality on what they're better for, because you get the polymer blades, so they're better if you sort of plan on doing anything in around the rocks. You get carbon fiber, which do have a better sort of snap to the fin, a bit more sort of a cleaner movement. They are more efficient, the carbon fibers. However, if you do knock them, they can delaminate quite easily, so you do have to be quite careful. But as far as the best, for me, the best all-rounder is vented fins, just because they're a good all-rounder. And they work for me. They're a relatively compact size, so if you're swimming in close proximity to anything, you don't end up sort of kicking and bumping into things quite as much. and they often have big chunky rails down the sides, so that for like helicopter turns and reversing or back finning, you get a bit more of a kind of a dig, something to sort of grab the water with the edge and really pull it backwards. So for most diving, I just tend to use the a vented style fin like the Apeks RK3. But if it does move into free diving, then I use a longer pair of fins. I've got some Mars Razor fins, and I don't think I've ever tried the mono fin, those big single fins that free divers use. I don't think I've ever used one before. It's not really something that I've never really had that exposure to them where I can try them out, and I can never figure out how you like tread water on the surface with just one. I think it takes a lot of training or like retraining your brain, so you're not doing a two-leg fin kick. But which fins are best? Yeah, for me personally, it's the Apeks RK3, that sort of shorter, vented style fin. They're short, they're powerful, they're tough. You don't have to worry too much about them, like bending or breaking, because it's just a single piece of solid rubber or polymer, whatever they're made from nowadays. They're just strong and reliable, and with spring heel straps. That's easily the best, just because those old like rubber ratchet straps, gosh, they're a real pain. So yeah, if you've ever had the joy of an old ratchet style strap, and then you go to a spring heel strap, you'll know just how nice that sensation is. Just my fins are on, and they fit perfectly fine. But then, yeah, obviously you do get sort of specialist fins when you move into sort of free diving and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, for me, I have my two main pair of fins are the Apeks RK3. They're the good like all-rounder that I have for most of my scuba diving and snorkeling. But for free diving, I have Mars Razor fins, just long fins with a hard plastic polymer blade. And for me, that's a good mix, something good for everything. And yeah, I don't have too many. I mean, I've got plenty of fins that I've tried out throughout the years, but those are the two that I've kind of settled on. And that's it for this week. Thank you so very much, as always, for listening, everybody. Links to everything that I've spoken about are going to be down in the description below. And wherever you're listening to this, if you could just do us a favor and take a moment just to click that like, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Head over to our Instagram, search for @simplyscuba, the YouTube channel and everything. Even if you're on the YouTube channel at the moment, yeah, head over to our Simply Scuba channel. And of course, head over to our website, simplyscuba.com. If you've got any questions that you want me to chat about on the Friday show, AskMark, let us know down in the YouTube channel and use the hashtag AskMark in your comment, and that way it'll get featured. Thank you for listening, everybody, and of course, safe diving.